I wasn't really planning on doing a tech stack video for at least until like 2026 or something, but the last couple of weeks have been really, really heavy coding weeks for me. I have not been doing any content for my channel. I basically just been getting up, writing code, and then managing Theo's channel. That's pretty much all I've really been doing. And in that time, I built out like 3 or 4 projects, two of which are like very real and will ship, and then the rest are like more internal R&D stuff. I have a lot of videos that I'm making right now going over all these things, but the thing that I really wanted to talk about is the stack that I've been using to build these. And this is by far and away the best experience I've ever had building like full stack web apps with like actual complex functionality. It is just so damn good. It feels like the final evolution of all the stuff that's been happening and changing in the web since like 2022 OGT3 stack days. We started out with Pages Router, Next.js, and TRPC. That then turned into the app router chaos, and then it was kind of just in flux for a while. I got pretty burnt out on React, not because I think React is bad. I will defend that framework to the end of the earth. I think it's really good. It's really good primitives, and I understand why it is the way it is. That said, I don't enjoy writing it. It doesn't click super well for me mentally, so I just don't want to touch it. So I've been using Svelte. I started using Svelte about a year ago when it still had like the magic variable thing where to have state variables in your script tag markup thing, you would just define like a normal variable. And if it was a let variable, it would be reactive. And then anytime you change that variable, it'd update the DOM and do a bunch of weird shit. It was still a really good framework back then, and I pretty quickly fell in love with it, especially Svelte Kit. I just loved that mental model and way of building. And then after that, in like October of last year, I think it was, the runes dropped, which was the completely new reactivity system that's signal based. It's freaking amazing. I've gotten even better at it and been going even deeper. And I'm very, very happy with the way they set that up. It's a really, really good reactivity system. And then even more recently, they added in the new remote functions. So now the TRPC of old, where we could call a query or a mutation on our backend with type safety, wrapped in React query, and all the nice things that we got way back then, we now have that just built into SvelteKit as a framework. It's kind of like the remote, I don't know what they're called. Is it like remote function? Not remote functions. Server actions? A server action, it's whatever the like calling a function in a server component in Next.js is, whatever the hell that is. I'm not up to date on my Next.js lore, and I don't really want to be. SvelteKit has gotten really, really, really good. And then stacking on top of that, I finally caved and started using convex. I have instantly fallen in love with this database. I cannot imagine using literally anything else at this point. It is so damn good. And okay, preamble over, let's talk about the actual full stack. I wrote out this long post, which is basically just a blog post on my Twitter a couple weeks ago. This was right after I finished the first project that I've been working on, which is like an internal agent monitoring system for my channel and Theo's YouTube channel. Gotta get notifications whenever a video goes live or there's like a highlighted and important comment or anything like that. YouTube kind of makes it annoying to deal with all that stuff, and it's my job to deal with all that stuff, so I figured I'd build something to make it easier. And this was the first time I'd ever used this stack. The stack is SvelteKit for the framework and the back end and the front end and all that stuff. And then the next piece is Runed. This is like a really, really cool library of helper functions for SvelteKit. I'm not going to go too deep on any of these things in this video because that's not the point. I will do a dedicated video on Runed. I'm going to film that after this, so then I'll go out probably sometime next week, hopefully. But it just has a bunch of little things that expand on the new reactive primitives of state and effect and derived to give you things like use search params to make dealing with URL search params stupidly easy, which is where your state should probably live on a lot of pages. Gives you stuff like easy context, and it gives you really nice ways of interacting with elements. It's a really good utility, which basically just gives you more primitives for Svelte, which is just so damn nice to have. The next piece is convex. I mentioned this earlier. I always kind of grouped convex in with Firebase and Supabase. I am really, really not a fan of Firebase. And Supabase, there are a lot of parts of it that I really like. I have admittedly kind of soured on it a little bit over time, but if you just want like a good Postgres instance that's like managed and hosted and has a really nice UI and some extra features on top, it's a damn good provider. Has a good developer experience. It's very well maintained, very well funded company. It's a good option. If you're into Postgres, good option. The thing that I hate about it is the row level security stuff. I did a video on this a while back. I kind of regret that video, not because I disagree with anything I said. I agree with everything I said in that video. My problem is I didn't give a really good example of how cringe and bad this can be. But this is like how a lot of people do their security on Supabase, where you're using row level security to secure your database, and you connect the database directly with the like Supabase SDK on the client. So you'll have your like React SPA, you connect to your Supabase backend and you query your database from this React app and you secure that by saying, okay, individuals can only access their own to-dos. Then you add this like on to-dos for select. So when you do a select statement on the to-dos table, you check whether or not the auth.uid is equal to the user ID on the table. This syntax is, first of all, very weird and confusing and annoying to do. It's so easy to footgun yourself with this, to have some weird edge case that slips through. The type safety is just bizarre and awkward on this, and it's not good. If you are reading or writing to your database, there should be an auth check in front that happens on an actual server. Servers are a good thing. You should be using them. And Convex has that. I didn't really understand or realize that they did, but all of Convex's stuff lives in the Convex directory. It's all infra as code in TypeScript, which I'll talk about in a second. That's something that I need as many DevTool projects and teams as humanly possible to start adopting the like full infra as code, especially in TypeScript. It is so much better than anything else I've ever used. The fact that when I'm using Convex, to spin it up in dev, all I have to do is like I have this running, I run bun convex to do convex dev, and then I run bun dev to run my SvelteKit server. And then now anytime I make a change in the convex directory, that'll automatically get updated to my local dev environment of convex, which will then update all of the types and generated, which will then update all of the types on my front end, and I can just use it. And when I want to define ways to interact with my database, I do that through queries and mutations. To use this as an example, this is in the PickThing 2.0 project, which I'll show off in a second here. It's one of the things I built with this stack. I have this query where I need to get all of the SVG to PNG conversions saved for an organization. I have to go through and write a query, which is an endpoint that gets executed on Convex's servers. I do it all as TypeScript. It's an auth query, and to define this auth query, that's a little helper I made, which is a custom query, which goes through and validates the user's identity. If there's no identity, it'll give you an unauthorized. We get our identity fields, and then we go back over here and we have a user. And then since we now have this user, we have the user's org ID, we can do ctx.db.query, get the PNGs, filter down by the org ID on here, and then we just grab the tags that are associated with them, and then we return them. It's not SQL. It's like an abstraction on top of SQL. They do have SQL under the hood, but this way of interacting with the database just feels really, really good. And all the other stuff they have built in there, the queries and mutations are really good, but they even have a bunch of other really useful stuff. They have like cron jobs, and then they have object storage, and then they have HTTP actions. And all of these are defined within the convex directory as infra as code. And what's just really insane about this is since it's all infra as code that lives in the same exact code base as my SvelteKit project, when I go to deploy it, I just update my build command to be npx convex deploy, and then I pass in the build command for my SvelteKit project. And then what this will do is it will deploy the SvelteKit project and deploy the convex stuff all at once. All of my database migrations, all of my schemas, all my cron jobs, all my background jobs, all of my queries and mutations are all defined as TypeScript. They're all in the same exact code base, they all have type safety, and they all deploy at the exact same time. It makes life so much easier, and so many problems that used to exist, like keeping these things in sync and like doing proper database migrations and making sure that like when you're deploying to staging, you're also deploying your database to staging. PlanetScale had like a good way of kind of dealing with that with their like database branches. You can kind of like merge your branches into each other, kind of like you do in Git. It was a really cool solution for this problem, but this is even better because it's just, again, infra as code. I want everything to be infra as code, and I want it all in the same code base, and I want it with type safety, and I finally have the dream with this stack. It's really, really good. I also ended up using neverthrow for this project. I very much went down the effect rabbit hole earlier this summer. I had a really good time with it, and I still do think it's stupidly useful. Like, effect is really, really good, and if you master it, it's godly. It is an incredible way of building TypeScript applications, and I'm very happy with it. But for the stuff I'm working on right now, I found a lot of the stuff I was doing with effect was mostly just like wrapping errors. I was basically just trying to catch all of the errors and handle those gracefully with type safety and all that stuff. And it's really good at that, but it's also really verbose and really heavy and just slows me down, especially when I'm working on these projects solo. Like all the things I built alone. These are projects that are like less than 20,000 lines of code, and they're just things mostly for me. So I really don't need the whole big effect system and thing. I just need to make sure that my server isn't randomly exploding when some random stupid thing throws, and neverthrow is like a really good in-between on this. A really good example of this is the image uploader within the PicThing 2.0 codebase. Obviously, users need to upload their images, and we have to do a bunch of like security checks on that, and then when the images are uploaded, we need to save those to convex, or not save the images, but save the URL to the image to convex. And there's a lot of places in here where things can throw and can get really gross. So in my middleware here, I'm doing verify auth result, which is basically I'm calling this upload thing user function that is doing a bunch of authentication checks under the hood. I'm using workos for auth, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. I get my verify auth result. If there's an error in the auth result, then that means that they're not authenticated. They are not logged in. So I will console.error like, hey, you're not in here. I'll throw the error. We have that all in there. There's no way that this just like randomly explodes with an unknown error. I am explicitly handling the errors right here with this is error. And then if it's not error, then we have verify auth result.value.user, because the return type on this is either an error of a verify upload thing user error, or it's an OK of user org. I'm also using it in the save to DB result thing here, where we need to be persisting the uploaded image, the user upload image to the convex database. So I pass in an API key, which is like how you can secure private internal mutations. It's just a weird pattern that I set up. I have the file size, file name, like all this stuff in here. I'm doing my mutation, and then this mutation can throw if it like fails or some auth check fails or whatever it ends up being. I'm wrapping that in result async.from promise. I pass in the promise, and then I also pass in this callback right here, which will get the error. The error is of type unknown, so I'm just kind of returning the error right here. And again, we have to like actually explicitly handle the errors now, where we have our result type here, the success type, and the error type. I'm going down here handling it, and then if it's all good, I can return the correct information down to the client. This is pretty much all I was using effect to do, is very similar logic to this, and I found that neverthrow is just a little bit lighter weight, a little bit easier to wrap your head around, and basically it gets the job done. When I get to have more complex stuff, maybe I'll bring in effect again to make really, really complex stuff happen, but for this kind of thing, neverthrow's plenty good enough. And also, one other thing before I go to the next section, this is another thing where I was very much wrong. I really hated the if error not equal nil pattern in Golang. I hated having to like explicitly handle every error, and the ergonomics on it were admittedly really shit. Like Go just doesn't feel good to write. I have a ton of respect for the language. It's a really good language. It's a workhorse. It does the job really, really well. The ergonomics kind of suck, but the forcing you to actually handle errors is a good thing. For way too long in my dev career or whatever, I would just kind of let random errors explode. Going down the effect rabbit hole really just kind of opened my eyes to how many things can throw, and I just can't handle writing code like that anymore. So everything is now, I'm pretty much using neverthrow for everything. I'm actually handling my errors, and the services are way better as a result. For styling stuff, I'm using Tailwind. Do I need to say anything about Tailwind? Like, come on, we all know what Tailwind is. LLMs are really good at it. It's good. I like Tailwind. There's nothing to say. The rest of the stuff on this list, this is for the other project I worked on, the like internal management system for Theo and I's channel. I will have this article linked down below. The rest of the stuff is like all very AI specific stuff. I'm gonna make separate videos about those in the future. I want to like give those like dedicated deep dives on their own to really talk about them. I don't want to bloat this video with that. But the short of it is I'm obviously just using the AI SDK for all my like AI stuff. I'm using S2, which is a new company for some like really crazy streaming stuff to make my streams super durable and resumable. Marked for rendering my markdown, and then Shiki for doing my code highlighting. Again, if you want more details on this stuff right now, I will link this article I wrote down below. There's a lot of cool stuff in there, but dedicated videos coming soon. Then the actual like last piece of the stack, at least for PicThing 2.0 and my general stack these days, is actually workos. I've come to the conclusion that I really hate dealing with authentication. It's an annoying and deceptively difficult problem. I know it's not hard to roll your own auth. I've done it many, many times. I know how to do this stuff. OpenAuth is, it's fine. Lucia is sadly not maintained anymore, and it's kind of now just like a guide on how to do authentication stuff. And then obviously BetterAuth has come along. I haven't really played with that yet. It does seem really good. But the reason why I went with workos and I've been using it a lot is A, it's dirt cheap for like what I'm ending up doing. Like all of these internal projects are not going to hit 1 million users, which means I'm not going to have to pay for it, which is great. And also if I go into PicThing 2.0 here and I go into my profile, I have this drop down of teams. So if I am currently on my team and then I want to go over to Mark's team, it'll take a second. I need to like iron this out to make it better, but it'll switch my account over to be on his team. And then now we can see his assets on his team because we're doing like actual team stuff. And all of that is being handled with workos. They have all like the organization logic set up really, really well. It's what all the big companies use for this stuff because it's like the enterprise auth platform, which I found like, yeah, it is the enterprise thing, but also AuthKit is like pretty good and the orgs are really useful and it's not that hard to work with. So I've just kind of been using it. It's like the least painful auth solution I found. I still hate dealing with auth. It still just sucks, but this works pretty well. For the last thing here, I do want to like go through the site and just show off some of the stuff I did in here because I think it does a really good job of showing the like benefits of this stack and how everything works really well together. Effectively, what I have here is this is wrapping together a bunch of random projects that Theo and I have done over the last like year or so. It took PickThing, which is like the thumbnail management software that he built out a while ago, brought that in, and then I also added in the SVG background tool that I built a little while ago, the quick pick tool he built a little while ago, and then just like a couple other like random miscellaneous things. Put them all together, added in a really good tagging system, massively up the performance on everything, optimized the hell out of it, added in team plans and all that stuff so that like me and then Theo's editor and all the people who are working on this team can like use it together. I just wanted a better solution for this. I was sick of the old pick thing. It sucks. I am in it every single day because I have how many do I have in here? Yeah, in my thumbnail directory, I have made 803 thumbnails since I started working for Theo, like less than a year ago. So like I'm using this product a lot and it was really slow and really annoying. So I wanted to make a better one and that's why I did it. And you see on here, if I toggle the hide background, the background's like instantly toggle. It's in dev, so I'm just using a dev key so I don't have to pay for it. And hide my background, I can, I think my face might be covering it, but I have like set saved filters and stuff like that. So if I hit this, it'll filter down to this guy in here. I can select a bunch of stuff and I can update their tags. Let's go in here and let's remove this tag from them. And then let's go ahead and bring the backgrounds back. And then let's go ahead and add some filters in here. So like, let's only do SVG backgrounds or whatever. These are the only things we're gonna show. Let's remove the tag filtering on here. It's just a really nice experience for managing and working with this stuff, and building this with Svelte plus convex ended up making it incredibly easy to make this really good. If you haven't seen this feature of convex yet, this will probably blow your mind. It's like one of the coolest things that they have offered, and it changes the way you look at your database and you architect your front-end logic, where you can see I have this SVG background over here that I've copied 69 times. I'm a child, leave me alone. And you can go in here and I can just set this to be like, just spam it. Actually, I won't do that because it'll look gross. Just set this to be like 33. We hit enter. I go back over here. I didn't refresh. I didn't do anything. And it's updated to 33. You get basically real-time syncing for free out of the box. And all you have to do to get that is just call use query on the front end. This is a gigantic class store thing in Svelte. Again, I will do a dedicated video on this and Ruined together. I think I'm going to shoot that after this, hopefully, probably. But all I have to do to get my data is I just have this use query in here. If you F12 into this guy, you can see the actual query that's happening under the hood. It's this get all assets for org, massive query that grabs a bunch of stuff across a bunch of tables. It does a bunch of logic on here to like get the right filters and orderings and all that stuff. And then it will send it down to the client. We get full type safety on this. You can see exactly like what it's returning. And the way convex works under the hood is this will basically just be cached forever. So the results of this use query for the parameters I pass in, which would be like my authentication status, the take number, and the order number, will be cached. And then anytime you update the database tables that query depends on, that it reads from. So like in this example, I updated the SVG backgrounds table that's hit within this query. That query gets busted, it updates, it automatically sends that data down to the client. And then because I'm doing this in SvelteKit, I'm basically just chaining a bunch of derives to do the filters. So I take my assets query, I then have a derived in here so that I don't have to deal with like the undefined state. It just makes the logic later so much easier. So I have this all assets derived, which means that anytime the assets query.data gets updated, because it's reactive, this will rerun. We'll get a new set of all assets. And then I have a bunch more derives down here. So like the filtered by assets type, whenever I go in here and like, I'm like, okay, we only want images right now. I'm only seeing images because of this derived. If I don't have any filters on, it'll just send everything down. If I do have filters on, it'll only send down the things that are like in the current filter array. I then go through and filter by tag IDs. I have a bunch of like more crazy stores and optimization stuff in here that I'm doing so that the searching by tag is an O of 1 runtime operation. It's just reading out of a hash set instead of having to go through and like do a linear time read through a bunch of stuff. I went way too hard on this. I spent way too much time on it, But you basically just end up with this gigantic chain of derives, and then anytime anything changes, it just works. I think that's all I have to say on this, at least for this video. I have been having a really, really good time building with this. I highly recommend looking into this stuff, especially like, I don't want to be like the ambulance chaser guy who's just like, oh, do you hate Next.js? Come use SvelteKit. Next.js, it's fine. It has a lot of tech debt from how much has changed over the years, but it still is a good framework, and they still are doing really cool stuff with it. React is still a really good primitive, but these things together just click so damn well in my mind. I've been super, super happy with it. I highly recommend checking it out. I don't have any like really good open source example for all this stuff yet. Picthing 2.0 is still closed source, especially since we haven't fully launched it yet. The product the product's been done for like 5-6 days, I think, or something like that. I haven't actually touched this in a little bit. In fact, in my work content browser, I'm using the hosted version on staging for my job right now. So when I'm making Theo thumbnails, which I do every day, I'm pulling the faces out of the current new instance of Picthing. But we do need to like get this out into the world. This is a much better version of Picthing. There are a lot of people who actually use Picthing. It's a huge improvement. We'll get it out eventually. It's just like the last mile of projects is really, really hard. We need to set up payments. Obviously, I'm going to be using Stripe. I haven't gone through and implemented this yet, but it's worth shouting this out here. I think I'm going to end up using Autumn for this. They're a new company that just went through YC. I've hung out with the founders a bunch. They were in SF recently, and we hung out. Really, really cool guys. I went through their onboarding and did a bunch of stuff. It looks really, really, really good. It's the thing I ranted about for 10 minutes on Convex, where it's Stripe stuff, but instead of like configuring it in the dashboard, you configure it with infra as code. So in your autumn.config thing here, you're doing the product, and then you give the product an ID, and then you give it a bunch of features and stuff, and then this automatically gets synced and updated to Stripe. That way of building is just so damn nice, and this is how I want to do the payment system. We'll get that implemented soon. That won't be too horrible. The real thing that's going to be horrible is just migrating the old Picthing stuff off. It's an old Next.js project using Clerk for auth and Terso for the DB. How we need to figure out like the data migration story and all this stuff. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to get it live, but once it's live, it'll be worth it, trust me. But yeah, that needs to go out. The R8Y stuff is the most likely one that I'll probably open source at some point. I need to like do kind of a V2 pass on this because it's working really well right now, but I need to make the agent loop a bit better. It's a little janky right now. I went really hard on this because like a big thing I was trying to do is like the resumable streams thing and getting a really good experience with this. So like this is all like hand-rolled custom stuff wrapping around the AI SDK to get like that experience. It's really useful for my job. Like the, comments that are mentioning the sponsors, I need to see that. And they're just right here. They're just hand delivered to me. I get Discord notifications when videos go live. That shows up in my to-do list automatically. It's a really cool little project that I think shows off this tech really well. It's also a really good example of like good AI stuff right now, which I think a lot of people are struggling on. I'm about to record a video about that. I hate how bad no one understands how this stuff actually works right now. And most products, even like the Claude app, doesn't do any of this stuff right. Streams are really hard. Agent loops are really hard. This is very brand new and unfigured out stuff. There's a long way to go in that direction, but I think I was onto some stuff here. So we'll talk about that later. Hopefully open source it at some point. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe. I have a lot more I need to go record. Hopefully talk to you soon.